All right, welcome to another episode of Through the Roof, a consumer-focused podcast focusing on all things residential metal roofing. Today, I'm without my co-host. He's actually here beside me, but he's off camera. He's got a little bit of a raspy throat, so I'm going to hold it down myself. But I do have a guest, Mark Macdonald with Sherwin-Williams. Mark, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So a lot of people probably recognize the name Sherwin-Williams, so we'll get to that in just a second. But why don't we start with just a little bit of an introduction of who you are, Mark, and your involvement with Sherwin-Williams and the coated coil division.
Absolutely. What I do is I work for Sherwin-Williams Coil. Now, there's three groups within Sherwin-Williams. We have what people know as the stores, which is obviously our largest revenue generator at Sherwin-Williams, and that's I'd say what most consumers are familiar with. We also have a group called Consumer Brands that's off-brand, so it's things that are sold in other stores. Things like Valspar Home Paint would be one, Geocell Sealants, Pratt & Lambert Paint, things like that. And then in the third division that we have is where I live in the Performance Coatings Group. And I live in the coil division within that group. And what we do is supply pre-paint for metal products in the metal building industry and specifically in the metal roofing industry. And so what I do in that division is I do business development to find opportunities to help add value to our customers across the United States.
How long have you been with Sherwin or been in this role?
So I started with Valspar, who was acquired by Sherwin-Williams, and I started back in February of 2012. It doesn't seem that long ago.
Yeah, it's funny how time
I guess
goes.
it is.
Yeah.
It's funny how that works.
That's before you were working in coating, in paint. I mean, is that kind of where your background is naturally, and ended up being with Valspar, or what were you doing before that?
So I actually started my career in the Navy. I was in the SEAL teams for 13 years.
Oh, wow.
Joined in 87 and got out. And then I went into aerospace and became a program manager and kind of do what I do today, which is sort of a business development internal consultant, working with large teams of people across different disciplines to either solve problems or find opportunities. And I think what I'm excited about at Sherwin-Williams is I get to find opportunities, and so I build, large vendor teams to do that. So that's my background led directly to that from aerospace.
That's great. Well, thank you for your service. That's I didn't know that about you. So it's always interesting to get on these podcast episodes and even get to know people a little bit better than we do in some of the quick glances that we have. It's a funny story, actually. We met up at MetalCon in Indianapolis this year, and you might not have known, but my coworkers here at the office knew. I was a little bit under the weather, and I was hitting some Dayquil because I was trying to be present for the one day that I was up there, and I got turned around trying to get back to my car. And I'm like walking around. I can't find how to get out of the convention center. And I see this information kiosk. I was like, oh, thank God, there's an information kiosk. I walk over and I ask the gentleman who's there, hey, can you tell me how to get to the parking garage? And lo and behold, it was Mark sitting at the kiosk, on the phone talking to somebody. I just talked to him about 30 minutes ago at one of the booths. So apologies for that exchange, Mark. I probably wasn't my best self during that period, but it's a funny memory we can kind of reflect back and think about. So
that's right.
So we'll talk a little bit about Sherwin-Williams in terms of a consumer perspective. We have a lot of homeowners that we interact with in the residential metal roofing market, and there's a lot of really cool technology. There's a lot of really cool things that are happening right now, and I think Sherwin-Williams is participating in a lot of those. So, Mark, I don't know if there's anything in particular. I've got a few topics that I'd like to talk about, but is there anything in particular to you that is kind of standing out as a good tool either for the end user consumer or maybe for contractors or supply stores that you're excited to talk about and maybe share some information on?
Yeah, I think we at Sherwin-Williams have invested a tremendous amount of time and money and continue to do so to try to figure out how to support the heart of where we see our business focus, and that's our manufacturers. So when we look at, how can we add value to that manufacturer to bring value to their customer, to in turn to the homeowner, I think we've done a lot of work in partnership with our customers to simplify those opportunities and find them and then simplify them. So an example of that would be bidding and estimating of metal roofs. So we've, one of the challenges for people coming into metal is confidence in that, when they place an order, is it going to be close to what they estimated, right? And with asphalt, I think there's a pretty high margin of confidence there, and I think it becomes, a much lower margin with metal, depending on the complexity of the roof, the type of substrate, the type of roofing product. And we've solved for that with the Sherwin-Williams Roofing Passport. We did that by several partnerships in integrating a solution that's never been done before with EagleView, who's really the baseline of the entire program. Without them, there wouldn't be, a solution. And then we partnered with Roofing Works and also a company named SmartBuild, and really bringing that together, that solution together, so that it affords our manufacturers an opportunity to have an integrated, material estimating and ordering tool that they can then in turn support their customers with is a big deal. We want, what do they want? They want something that's fast, something that's accurate, and something that's integrated with their own material and pricing systems. And, frankly, that takes a lot of work to do that. We have a solution
of that here for sure, because we kind of want to be considered a technology leader in our space, and we're certainly no Sherwin-Williams in terms of the resources that we have, but we do interact with the end user maybe even a little bit differently than Sherwin-Williams does. So we've had a chance to connect with our Sherwin-Williams rep, and obviously connect with you, Mark, at MetalCon. Can you give, if you're kind of put yourself in the perspective of a homeowner, can you kind of walk through the workflow of Roofing Passport just to give them an understanding of how easy it is and the type of confidence they could have that they're getting back, as long as the salesperson or the estimator is kind of following the right steps, they're going to get a quote back that should be very, very accurate?
Yeah, sure. I think when a homeowner deals with someone who's interacting with the technology that we've provided, we're seeing material final orders that are going in that are within $100 of the actual initial estimate, and so very accurate. It does you get bad data in, you get bad data out. You get good data in, you get good data out. So when we have systems like with EagleView, where we have very, very accurate data, the data that they have is down to the fraction of an inch that they're providing, and that's unbelievable. So when you have that kind of accuracy, you can have a high level of confidence with it. I think a lot of the people who are in asphalt are using the same data. They're just not using the end product because they don't need it, right? They can suffer whatever waste carried to the next job site. So with metal, though, that is very important. So when the homeowner asks a contractor for an estimate, that the beauty of our tool is that the contractor doesn't even need to leave, whether it's their truck or their office. They can just run the job before they even see the homeowner, just on a whim, and within sometimes 10 minutes, sometimes a couple hours, have a complete material takeoff that they can trust. Now that said, the contractor is still, needs to get up on that roof and check the accuracy of it, because that's a liability thing, and it should be checked. It needs to be checked for accuracy, and so that's something that a homeowner should expect as well. That their contractor is really verifying and making sure that they're going to get what the homeowner wants.
I'm glad
the good
you
news
said
is
that
our
on
tool.
the record.
What's that?
I'm glad you said that on the record. Yeah, because that's always kind of our message is, the technology is great, and it's going to give you a price quote that's going to be something you can almost ride home, but you can't stretch a metal panel. You can cut it, but you can't stretch it. So, if you need a 15-foot, 10-inch panel and the software gets it at 15.8, well, your price quote is going to be really close, but you're going to be 2 inches short unless you get somebody up there field verifying.
The field verification is mandatory for us. I mean, it is with anybody who's worth their salt in this market, in this
Well, I think
industry.
one of the cool tools that's available to a contractor is they'll get a roof layout, just like an eagle view or top view. They can actually go up there and they can measure the ridge, or they can measure the rake, and they can say, okay, it looks like it's scaling proportionately, or hey, I actually need to add 2 more inches to this panel length in this section.
Yep.
It's not like you're having to start from scratch and draw out the diagram of the roof all over again. You're
No.
using what the software has generated, and you're going in, and if need be, you're able to make some small tweaks, and then we can come in and we can make those adjustments on the software to create a material list that's going to be exactly what's needed for that roof.
Exactly, and I think that's one of the beautiful parts of our solution is that you can make those edits in the geometry itself, right? And that'll ripple through and update the entire bid. So it's a pretty seamless process to do that, and it updates everything. It updates the panels, it updates the screw count, the sealant needed, the underlayment. Every single piece of that bid is tied to that geometry, which I think is very important when you're building something that you want to trust, right?
And
so from a homeowner, go ahead. Well, from a homeowner perspective, I mean that's I think that they're going to want to make sure that when they hear a number that's the number.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So for a homeowner, basically to start the process off, they're curious. Maybe they've seen an advertisement or something about metal roofing, and then they track down a contractor who is utilizing this roofing passport software. Really what they need to do is say, hey, this is my address, right? I mean, that's kind of the starting point for a homeowner. And then the contractor or the provider can go ahead and they can actually put a comprehensive price quote and material list together to give a ballpark, or not even I hate to use the word ballpark because it's probably even more exact than that, but to get a very close quote together, like you mentioned, within typically $100 or a couple $100. Then there's this step of roof verification by their installer, by their contractor, and then it's time to rock and roll. You order the materials and you sling them on. And I think that really can create. You're talking about 4 steps in a process that really creates a level of understanding for the end user as well. I think that's where a lot of the value comes to it, in my opinion. Is you've got contractors who don't have to learn this crazy technology. They don't have to learn something that's more complicated than it's worth their time. It's really a simple process.
Yes, that's important too. We've spent a lot of time over the last couple of years bringing it, making the interfaces more simplistic, making the data more accessible, and for the contractor, the contractor is ultimately the one who's on the hook for all this.
Yeah.
And so they have to have not just the confidence, to your point, but they have to have the easy use as well. And I think that's been the most challenging road that we've traveled over the last couple of years, is that there's different technologies out there that tried to start from the other way, which is have incredible easy use, but then they're lacking in the accuracy, they're lacking the integration. So we started at the other end, and I think that's a better path. I think so. We chose, let's find the most accurate, comprehensive tool that we possibly can create, and then let's simplify it over in iterations, and that's what we've been focused on.
Yeah, that's great. And I think one of the things that True Metal Supply really believes in our partnership with Sherwin-Williams, and one of the things that we were so excited about when we were able to connect with you and talk about Roofing Passport on this podcast is Mason and I kind of were like, well, do we want everybody to know what we're using? And for the good of the industry and for the good of the contractors who are promoting metal roofing, or who may not have promoted metal roofing before because they just weren't comfortable enough doing it, we think there's going to be more people influencing customers to choose metal roofing, or more contractors agreeing to do a metal roof instead of trying to talk a customer out of doing metal, because they're going to be more comfortable with it. So we wanted to have this open dialogue, this transparent dialogue with you and with Sherwin-Williams about how do we promote and present Roofing Passport to create greater value to the overall metal roofing industry. There is a cost associated with Roofing Passport. Again, we want to create some transparency, and I know we can't go into the fine details of how the pricing is done, but I think we can talk about the cost and the value that comes along with it, just so that nobody's taken by surprise. Do you want to talk a little bit about the pricing models that you guys use, or is that something that is too detailed or too situational to discuss?
Well, I think without getting into without getting into numbers, I think we can just talk what the program is. So EagleView has a standard program called bronze level pricing, and a lot of your listeners may be even familiar with what that means. So we are at bronze level pricing, meaning it's a standard cost format for EagleView. So if you sign up for a roofing passport, you're going to pay the same thing you're paying today, you're paying tomorrow, right? So whatever your pricing plan is, you're paying, assuming it's bronze, you're paying the same thing. We're just including the entire material takeoff and all your reports in addition to the EagleView Premium Roof Report, which you also get. So you get everything that you got yesterday, except now you get the cut list, you get everything you want out of that. Yeah. So that's the beauty of the Roofing Passport, is that we've, in our partnership with EagleView. The other thing that's exciting about EagleView is that and our partnership with them is that we realize that we can't just have a solution that's limited to tightly integrated products with manufacturers, although that is the end solution, right? But we're not going to be able to cater to a larger group of people. So we did partner with EagleView to create a generic database, and that database is available through EagleView. So for your listeners, if you're interested, ask your EagleView representative if you have a contact, and they can give you access to the EagleView, metal application, which is in fact the Sherwin-Williams Roofing Passport. And so that's a gateway to get to a manufacturer, to get to a Sherwin-Williams manufacturer who can then service you with an integrated solution. So that's kind of the pathway that we've developed for a much broader swath of contractors.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's good information. I didn't even really think about it because as a metal provider, we didn't typically use EagleView, but anyone who's doing shingles, or most of the people who are using shingles, they're already paying for that service, and now they kind of just get some complementary services along that will help them be more confident with metal. It's great. I didn't realize that. Thank you for sharing that, Mark. Anything else about Roofing Passport that we didn't cover?
I think it's important to note that the Roofing Passport can handle the EagleView data as the baseline, but we can also do blueprints, plans, and drawings through Roofing Works is a key partner. And we can also process raw XML files. So if you're running let's say the homeowner runs a hover report, which is a pretty common thing, can happen. That generates an XML file, and we can run that XML file seamlessly in our system for an instant material takeoff.
That's very cool. Yeah, I didn't realize that. Yeah, we're familiar with Hover here as well. It's interesting to see how all this technology can support each other, even though this software is kind of a standalone. Roofing Passport's being promoted by itself. It's interesting to see how other technologies can benefit from it. Very cool.
Absolutely.
Anything else in terms of technology that you guys are that Sherwin-Williams is excited about right now?
Yeah, we're promoting what we're calling the MetalView program, which is the next phase of, I think, growth for the metal roofing market, and that's a large group of vendors that we're partnered with to support our Sherwin-Williams participating manufacturers in the MetalView program. And what that is just continuing to support the markets they're in, and then finding growth with companies and contractors that do direct to consumer selling. So there's a whole group of folks out there that we really haven't leveraged in the past that we have a program to do that. In fact, I did 2 phone calls today with 2 different manufacturers on that program to begin onboarding them. And it's exciting because we're not doing anything new. We're just taking advantage of something that people have been doing in the asphalt community, the window community, the siding community. They've been doing this for many years, and now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take advantage of those brilliant companies out there that are doing direct-to-consumer sales, that have sophisticated business processes, and we have a technology stack that aligns with them from companies that they're already familiar with in many cases. And we have that whole process lined out, and that is really where we see the future of metal roofing in the United States.
That's very cool. Now, is that something that was developed because of an obvious gap that maybe, like you said, maybe the window companies had already kind of worked to close? I mean, did something happen that kind of sparked this initiative, or was it just a natural next step?
It started about 5.5 years ago, just pure market research, and figuring out why, when you look at the asphalt market share, it's 87%, 87%, 87%. And you ask the question, why is that? Now we know. And the answer is because we're not doing, in our market, we traditionally don't do direct to consumer sales. I mean, that's the answer. So what's the fix? Well, you do direct to consumer sales. Like that's how you go address that. And so you have to partner with people that do that. And you have to have a series of services and software to do that, right? And so that's the MetalView program. That's what we and our participating manufacturers are off doing already. We're putting roofs on houses already with it. It's exciting, and our vendor network continues to grow. We're getting new vendors every month to join us in our, our journey to get more metal on houses. That's the goal.
Well, we know that the market is shifting already, and I think that's exciting. I think we saw a recent national report that residential metal re-roofs is something around 17% now, and I think it looked very different than that 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I think it was closer to 4 or 5%. So I think we're seeing this growth that's happening. I mean, that may be Sherwin-Williams already plugging away at trying to get more and more people excited about metal. But at True Metal Supply, we really try to, the way we market and the way that we talk about metal roofing, just like this podcast, it's designed. Our marketing and our information is designed for the end user, because we want them to be confident knowing that there's an alternative roofing system out there besides the common and familiar asphalt shingle, and it has better longevity and it has better value, better energy efficiency. It's more recyclable. And how do we continue to pass this messaging on to the end user is so important to talk about.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm an executive board member with the Metal Roofing Alliance. And that's just such a perfect segue for the Metal Roofing Alliance, because our industry, that's where our industry focus has been. And when you look at some of the growth that's happened in metal roofing, and the Metal Roofing Alliance has helped do that, because the one focus of the MRA that is incredible is the homeowner focus. The idea that a homeowner needs to go find this information that you just described. Why should I have a metal roof? What are the benefits? What are some of the things the negative things that I've heard? Are those things true? Can I talk to an expert? There's a lot of companies that have supported the MRA over many decades now. And what I think the Metal Roofing Alliance has built is the number one go-to database for consumer information. So if I was a homeowner and I wanted to learn about a metal roof, there is no better place to do that than the Metal Roofing Alliance. There's a tremendous amount of information there. The amount of work and energy and blood, sweat, and tears that's gone into developing that website. You've got Renee Ramey, who's the executive director, has just done a phenomenal job corralling that stuff over the last several years. And so, the homeowner does need information. And great news, there's a great place to get it called the Metal Roofing Alliance. So I think that's my message there, is go send people to the Metal Roofing Alliance site to learn about metal and why it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the more that people learn about the benefits of metal, the more we're going to win specifically for us, the residential roofing market over to this long-lasting, high-value roofing system. So that's really great. Hey, talking about the Metal Roofing Alliance, or talking about even consumer information, this might be really relevant to Sherwin-Williams as well. And if you don't have a good answer for this, you can kick it back to me. But why is there this misconception that metal roofing is so hot? I mean, that's probably the most common question that we get from homeowners that are interacting with us, especially with the darker colors like black. They're like, well, I don't want a black roof because it's going to heat up my entire structure. Can you talk a little bit about the tendencies of metal, and in particular maybe the paint systems, and how they're actually combating heat permeation versus what customers' perception is?
I'm laughing because I think my answer to that is good marketing from the asphalters, probably.
Sure, yeah.
But I think the physics of it are quite different, right? So when you look at a roof or anything that's outside, there's really two factors at play scientifically, right? And I say this because I did run our research and development for about 3 years. So I wouldn't say I'm a paint expert, but I know people who are.
Sure.
And the way that you look at this is really simplistic, right? So the first thing that you look at is something called emissivity, and that's a substrate's ability to release heat, right? And so an example of that would be in the old, and I'm dating myself here, but because they don't have these anymore, but on old cars they had chrome bumpers. And if you ever went up to a chrome bumper, shiny bumper, and in the sun in the summertime, and you touched it, if you had skin on your hand when you pulled it back, it was blistered. And the reason for that is that that chrome bumper is not very emissive. In other words, it will retain energy that's applied to it. So as the sun heats it, it's not releasing that at a high rate, and you're gonna touch it and it's gonna be super hot. So like you wouldn't want to have a chrome roof, right? Because
Sure.
that would be super bad because it's gonna retain heat and be very hot and bleed into the house. So that's your first play, is what type of substrate is it, right? And then the second piece of that is what color is it, right? So pretty basic stuff, right? If you've got white tends to be very reflective, right? And then black tends to be very it absorbs energy, it doesn't reflect it. Or said differently, it doesn't reflect it. So to your listeners, it would appear as if you had a piece of metal that was black, that would be very bad because it would absorb heat. But in fact, that's not true. Something that's highly is not very emissive and not very reflective would be an asphalt roof.
Right.
is those things tend to be very hot because they don't release heat, they retain heat, and they're black, so they're not reflecting anything. What's interesting about a pre-painted metal roof is that when you apply paint, chemically, you apply paint, that steel behaves radically differently. And that's measurable and scientific, and there's all sorts of studies online about it. So when you put pre-paint on, that it becomes very emissive, meaning it's going to release heat very quickly. And then you apply a coating to it. We have these things called solar reflective coatings, solar reflective pigments. So you can take a black coating on a piece of substrate that's now releasing energy very, very efficiently, and also have some level of reflectivity. Now, I'm not telling you that a black ever is going to reflect like a white.
Sure.
That's not true, but it will reflect. So what you end up with a pre-painted roof when you stack it against asphalt is that pre-painted black metal roof is going to be much, much more heat efficient in a very measurable way. And these are studies that have been done by federally funded research and development facilities that have measured these things. They release them. They're on Energy Star, those rating. I mean, the Energy Star program documented this stuff. The Cool Roof Rating Council documents this behavior. So these are known things. It's also part of the LEED program with the heat island effect, documenting this kind of behavior, which is that pre-painted metal products are very friendly in terms of being something that can help decrease the thermal profile of your structure, whether that's a residential or a commercial house. So that was a lot of words, but that's my answer.
Yeah, no, that aligns with what we try to tell our customers as well. There's a reason that black metal roofing has become so popular over the last couple of years, is because people have learned that they're not sacrificing energy efficiency. Of course, it's not going to be as energy efficient as the lighter color, but they're not sacrificing energy efficiency going with a black metal roof, which may be more comfortable for them when they're comparing it to their old asphalt shingles. It doesn't feel like quite as extreme of a change. Even with the crinkle or the textured finishes that we see now, we like talking about those because those even feel much more like a traditional roofing system because they're not quite as glossy and they've got a little bit of texture like an asphalt shingle does. But again, you're getting, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're getting 25 to 30% more energy efficiency from pre-painted metal, even a black coil or metal roof compared to like a midnight black shingle.
Yeah, it's probably more than that, but yes, it's quite a bit. If you look, I've seen the temperature differences, and they're substantial.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean,
substantial.
again, that's one of the questions that comes up all the time. Every customer not every customer, many customers that we interact with, that's like the thing that is keeping them from moving forward with a metal roof. And so to hear it from a Sherwin-Williams expert, research and development expert, that should offer at least some good counsel to individuals who are considering a metal roof and maybe hesitant because they're worried about energy efficiency. It's actually a much more energy efficient system.
Yeah, I think when you I think as a homeowner, it's very difficult. It's going to be, these things are, there's a lot of technical aspects to describing the heat profile of a roof. I mean, it's not a simple thing to do, and so it can be a little daunting. But because I've had people ask me this, independent of this podcast about this, and my short answer is math and physics. Like
Sure.
it's not a marketing thing. I mean, we market it, but it's not a marketing based thing. It's a fact of science. It's a fact of physics that a pre-painted metal roof behaves substantially differently and favorably, more so than an asphalt roof. It's because if you just think about what I'm saying, it starts to make sense, right? You're like, oh well, it's a pre-painted metal product is going to be more emissive, and those are all things that are measurable and real and well documented all over the internet.
Probably go to the Metal Roofing Alliance and get some additional details on
The Metal Roofing Alliance certainly has
Right.
a lot of data on what I just talked about. Yeah.
That's great. Well, Mark, we're getting ready to wrap up here. I appreciate you giving us some time today. Any closing thoughts before we sign off here?
I think that the message to the homeowner is that there's a lot of great messaging about metal, especially over the last few years. And I think that go out there, do your research, learn about that metal roof, go to the Metal Roofing Alliance, and then, find someone, find a contractor who's going to put quality metal roofing on your house. I mean, I think you should know, as a homeowner, you want to know where that metal comes from, right? That's an important concept. Like, who's providing that metal roof to that contractor? You want a quality metal roof. That's the thing I'd leave with the homeowner is you want a quality metal roof on that house. And if you want to know what a quality metal roof is, there's no better place to learn about that than the Metal Roofing Alliance. And go there. And you can even contact someone that works at the Metal Roofing Alliance to learn more about what that means. But there's plenty of opportunity to get a quality metal roof on your house. I think Sherwin-Williams is excited to be part of this community, and we're excited for the growth that's still coming.
Well, thanks, Mark. And yeah, we work really hard at True Metal Supply to make sure that we're a resource as well for anybody here in the local Knoxville area. If you have questions, if you want leads on good quality installers, if you want to make sure that you're getting U.S. steel, U.S. coated Sherwin-Williams products, that's what we offer here, and we think that quality is the driver of industry growth. So, Mark, thanks again. If you listeners, if you have any questions, check us out at TrueMetalSupply.com. Check out the Metal Roofing Alliance, and until next time, have a great day. Let's sling some metal.